So, John Mills, Eagle Creek Farms. Uh, we're very glad to have you here. Um, as I was chatting before, you're a well-loved farmer in this organization, and we really enjoy kind of what you produce. And kohlrabi is always a highlight, um, and we're hoping for more of those beautiful Brussels sprouts. But I want to give everything away. I'll give you the chance to talk. And so, first of all, I want to hear a little bit about your story about how you got into farming.
Yeah, it's I've got one employee that's been with me since just about the beginning. So I've been back at my family farm for since 2016, so 14 years. And like I said, it's a family farm. I grew up here. My dad grew up here. I'm the fourth generation farming this land. But we weren't always growing market garden vegetables. We dabbled a bit of it uh, in a bit of that when I was younger, which kind of gave me the idea that I could do something other than being a grain and cattle farmer. Because north of Calgary, that's what farmers do. Is they have big areas of land and they farm a couple thousand or tens of thousands of acres of land or have a couple hundred cattle. And that was kind of the business we were in, my family growing up. And it didn't really interest me because um, sitting on a tractor is not the worst thing in the world, but you do all this work sitting on the tractor, growing the crops or, tending to the cattle. And at the end of the day, when your product's ready to go to market, you phone someone up, ship it off, and you don't see it again. But like I said, when I was younger, I had that interaction of doing some farmers markets, growing some vegetables, and I really enjoyed that interaction. It's kind of the feedback from the work you do, and then you get to see the consumer enjoying your food. And so I think that's kind of what drove me to look for something different to bring back to the farm when I came back to the family farm in 2006 and started growing vegetables, cut flowers to sell at the farmers market. And so what got me into farming, I grew up on a farm. I think since I was a little kid, I just knew that was my path. It was more of leaving the farm for a decade to kind of explore and see what I was going to bring back to the farm. So again, it was in 2006 I came back to the farm here. I'm an hour north of Calgary at Bowden. I started a sunflower maze and a U-pick flower farm at that point in time. And then over the last 15 years, we've been expanding our vegetable gardens each year to, work with the YYC cooperative that we've been a member of for, Rod, must be 5 or 6 years we've been working together.
Yeah.
I operated my own CSA for a number of years, which was really exciting. But I have also, in those last 14 years, been growing a family. I have 4 children now, so I wasn't able to leave the farm as much as I was when I was younger. So that's why this this cooperative, that we're all on the Zoom meeting here with, has been such a great, empowering, you know, personal thing for me because it's enabled me to balance that farming life of growing vegetables that I want to while raising the family here at home as well. Yeah, I can go on, Rod, but
That's that's
kind of
awesome.
the overview. Yeah.
I'm curious about you were off the farm and then back on the farm. What was happening in those 10 years?
Uh, so I knew as soon as I came back to the farm that it's a bit of a lifestyle. Like it's hard work and it's not hard work. It's a lot of work in the summer and I kind of, not that it's a bad thing, but be stuck here at the farm once I kind of settled in. So I took the time to study agriculture. I traveled in England, Australia, and New Zealand, working on farms in all those countries just to I see how people did it, somewhere out of the bubble that I lived in. So it was really just studying agriculture in different parts of Canada and working on farms in different parts of the world, again, just to get a different perspective, bring some different ideas back to, the hometown of Bowden here and see what other possibilities we could do.
That's amazing. And you are touted as the first or only sunflower maze in the country?
I was one of the earliest, and there was a number of years that there was only like less than 5 sunflower mazes in the world, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of corn mazes out there. So it was a pretty unique aspect of our farm for at least a decade, and then then Instagram, popped up, and all these other corn mazes, which are maybe, struggling with competition because everyone has a corn maze, realized that, sunflowers are kind of beautiful, and it was a real big draw. So now I cannot tout like the only sunflower maze in Alberta or Canada. Pretty much everyone has one, but yeah, we were one of the first. I guess other unique aspects of our farm is not any one thing that we do, whether it's the sunflower maze, corn maze, you pick flowers or you pick vegetables. It's just that we have them all in one spot here, just an hour out of Calgary, and we're certified organic. We might be the only certified organic sunflower maze in the world. I'm not 100% sure, but for what that's worth, it's maybe it's only something that I can really cherish and enjoy. That I'm pretty passionate about growing local food sustainably, and if I can extend that to something that's just for beauty and fun and taking pictures of, I think it kind of shows that I'm really in it for the long haul and not just in it to market organic produce. I really believe it, that everything we do on our farm is certified organic.
That's brilliant. Why don't you keep telling us a little bit more about the farm? So you did talk about potatoes and market gardening, and yeah, what all are you doing out there?
Oh yeah, so I guess there's a couple crops that we really focus on and specialize on. And one is a family of crops. We're gonna brassicas, and so brassica includes, like what Rod talked about before, is the kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower. Radishes are in there, and kale. So it's just a family of plants, and we do specialize in growing those. We grow must be a couple acres in total of those crops. Also, I like growing root crops. Carrots are just, nothing's better than eating a fresh carrot out of the garden, or even a carrot that's stored until now tastes better than carrots that come out of California. So we grow a couple acres of carrots as well, and the majority of those, come into the YYC harvest boxes. But another thing that I'm really passionate about that, I grew up doing is growing potatoes. Potatoes for eating, obviously, but also my father started growing seed potatoes in, it's probably the mid 80s. So I was around 5 or 6 years old. Now, a seed potato is no different than a potato you find at the grocery store, with the exception that they're disease-free. We get it inspected by CFIA, so if you're to buy seed from us, that it's going to grow really well in your garden. So over the last decade, we've taken that to another level. We don't just grow 1 or 2 varieties of seed potatoes. It's over 40, I think it's over 40 varieties that we have out in the field. And some of those varieties we have 2 plots of. So I just finished up a week ago, and I think our total count was 62 different individual plots of potatoes, totaling, again, over 40 varieties. So I could go on all day about potatoes, but fingerling potatoes are really fantastic. There'll be some of the earlier ones in the harvest boxes, but we grow purple potatoes, red potatoes, white potatoes, even little potatoes that look like pumpkins. Well, no pumpkin shaped potatoes, but we do grow the rest. I really enjoy potatoes. So for those of you who have a harvest box, you'll be getting our potatoes throughout the summer. But for those who might have a home garden, we sell in the spring. We're done now, but for next year, we sell small packets of potatoes, suited for people in the city with a small garden, balcony, or even growing in pots. Our smallest package size is 4 potatoes. So we'll service anyone's seed potato needs.
That's brilliant. And how do you deal with people that say, "Oh, a potato's a potato"?
Well, yeah, it's hard. Like, I guess we all put our own, importance on what food or what we have, most important, or what we place our importance on. So I'm not gonna look down on anyone who doesn't enjoy potatoes as much as I do. Interesting though, the question that we have is like, well, what's the best potato? And now that's a hard one to answer, because some people like a dry baked potato that's, their mother and grandmother and great grandmother, that's what they always had, and they lay on the sour cream and bacon bits and butter and everything else.
Sounds good.
Some people like that, or what I'll prefer is we grow a variety. It's got a purple skin and a white flesh. It's called Purple Viking, and it's got a real moist flesh to it. So when you bake it up, you don't need to put on so much of the, potatoes are healthy, until you fry them in grease or put on sour cream and the butter and everything else. So, if you go with something like a Nicola, which for those of you who had harvest boxes like throughout the winter, Nicola was one that we sent quite a bit. It was a yellow flash potato. Again, another one. It's really moist. It doesn't need a lot of those fixings to kind of give it, the flavor or the moistness. And then it goes even further. If you're more of a barbecue fan or a potato salad fan, maybe you want a fingerling potato, which is waxier. So when you cook it up, it doesn't kind of just crumble apart. It stays, more chunky. They're really good for pan fried potatoes. Mashed potatoes, a lot of people just like those creamy mashed potatoes. So, you want to go for a white flash potato. Those are the ones that are going to just mash into the creamiest thing ever. So yeah, I like to look at it that point of view, and people who maybe aren't as passionate about potatoes as I do, then I'm definitely game for directing them to the potatoes they like, or maybe trying some new ones and giving them the directions on the best way to cook them and eat them and enjoy them to their fullest.
I love that, and I get the sense that that was just scratching the surface.
Yeah, but the other really cool thing about potatoes that I enjoy, say if you're not so much just an eater, but more of a gardener, is that with the exception that they take up so much space in your garden, like one potato plant can take up 3 square feet. Oh man, you can grow, hundreds of carrots in 3 square feet. So they take up a lot of room, but relatively easy to grow because you're not, pulling tiny weeds out of each individual carrot. You just throwing the potato in the ground. When some weeds start to grow, you just pull the dirt up around them to hill them up, create that soil for the potatoes to grow in. That takes control of the weeding. Give them a bit of water, and there's nothing easier to grow than a potato. So from even like a new gardener point of view, potatoes are a great start as well.
Love that, John. I'm envisioning a potatoes with John kind of spin-off to this interview. Yeah. So, what about animals? Do you have animals on your farm?
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, no, not really. Not in the whole like farming sense. At one point in time, when I was younger, we had a lot of cattle. My father raised cattle. I think though that I was kicked a few too many times when I was young, by cows or young steers, that it kind of just put me off the animals. It's never really been my thing. Um, you know, and the other challenge with animals from a farming perspective, unless you have like a really good crew or herdsman or someone you can rely on, they really stick you to your operation because they need tending to every day, watering to every day. Whereas I enjoy that maybe less intensive aspect of vegetables that you can plant them and you can leave them for a couple of weeks. If you leave them too long, you're going to be regretting it with weeds and stuff like that. So we've played around with animals in the past, but at the moment we have a couple miniature pigs and a few bunnies for the kids and the public that come out to the maze. But no, not so much into the livestock right now.
Cool. So in that light, so we had a conversation with Marcus, and he's using animals a lot to build his soil, but that's not the only way to build soil. And so, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing on your certified organic system, and maybe I think some of the things you're doing are actually pushing the envelope of the organic certification. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, nutrition is key for growing plants. We even in like a really environmentally sustainable way, we hate to like think about it as mining the soil. But every time I bring some carrots or potatoes up to the city, what I'm doing is taking nutrients out of my soil, and I have to replace those to keep plants healthy. Now, there's two ways of replacing nutrients. One is even in organic systems, in our seed potato operation, we do bring in organically certified nutrition, which I think is a lot based off of, there's a lot of kelp that goes for potassium. There's a lot of fish waste that goes into like creating nitrogen. Even some, I think chicken manure kind of brings in some of the nitrogen for those operations. But, that's really just scratching the surface for nutrition on a farm, because in our soils, like all the nutrition we have in our soils, it didn't just kind of magically appear from farmers applying nutrients to it. it's just the rocks and minerals down in the ground, which just, it goes on not endlessly, but it goes down quite a ways. And so not all those nutrients are available to the plants. They're all down there. But what's happened over the past decades and centuries and years is the biology, the bacteria, the fungi, and the ecosystem down in the soil has been breaking up those inaccessible nutrients from the trace minerals, from the minerals that created the soil, like the subsoil, and making those available to the trees and the plants that are growing. So that's kind of our new focus on the farm, is trying to find ways of kind of capturing the power of the soil ecosystem to start to break down and make those nutrients more available. And there's a lot to it, and this is really my first kind of second year really playing around with the different techniques. But ultimately, what we want to do is move away from as much cultivation as we can. In a system where you cultivate, you're breaking up the mycorrhiza, you're breaking up the fungi that are slowly developing within the soil systems. You're just destroying the soil ecosystems, so then the bacteria and everything can't work as efficiently at again, breaking down and making those nutrients accessible to the plants. So yeah, we've got some experimental plots where we didn't go through with a cultivator, didn't go through with a tillage. We just left our strips of cover crop that were growing from the year before and planted kind of down where the plants were last year. So again, that soil ecosystem is still intact. We put in new plants and not monoculturing anymore. So before, when we would have a row of cabbage, it would just be a row of cabbage. But now we're intermixing that row of cabbage with, beets and chard or corn. And so, you ask, well, why would we do something like that? And it's because different plants have different relationships with different types of organisms within the soil. So by creating more species growing above ground, then there's going to be more, ultimately, I don't know if species isn't the right word, but more species, more diversity in the biology below ground. And then each different grouping or type of biology below ground are going to have different strengths at accessing and supplying our plants with different nutritions above ground. So yeah, that's kind of that's kind of a bit of an overview about some of our new techniques and some of the old techniques where you can bring nutrition into fields. The last thing, if you were to look at an aerial view of our land where we farm our vegetables on, compared to other land around us, which might be, vast sections of 100 or 200 acre fields, a lot of our plots are down under 10 acres, some are down under an acre. So not only are we doing the diversity within the row, we have some really long crop rotations. And a crop rotation is where potatoes, for instance, we'll only plant potatoes in a plot for 1 year. So we'll plant potatoes in this 40-acre plot, and then for the next 7 years after that, it's going to be a mixture of, maybe we'll plant hay, a perennial hay, for a couple of years. Last night I was telling Rod I was out planting a cover crop that's just intended to be plowed down. So it was a mixture of rye, oats, barley. There were sunflowers in there, tillage radish, and sorghum Sudan grass. So again, 7 different species that we're planting in this plot of land that are going to help build the nutrition for the future crops. So yeah, that's another technique we've been using for a lot of years, is just having really diverse rotations within our fields to just maintain diversity above ground and below ground.
That's fantastic. And I think people hearing that maybe for the first time might be a little hard to grasp. My plan is to get my graphic design daughter to put that into some easy infographics, so people can see, the relationship of the plants above ground and how they're doing different work below ground, and doing, like you say, like it's almost like gathering different nutrients from the soil. So like one plant's in the milk department, one's in the meat department, one's in the fresh veg department, and that kind of stuff. So then you get a full basket of food to kind of then put into your plants. I also really liked how you said when you bring the carrots down to Calgary, you're very conscious of the fact that you've just taken nutrition off your farm. And I think we here as the eaters just want to say and pause and recognize that that's a huge gift that you're giving to us, to pass that nutrition on to us. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, it's always a weird thing to talk about, but the nutrient cycle of our food, it comes from the fields, it goes to wherever people are living, the city or the towns, and then historically, maybe not so much anymore, but historically, those nutrients would go down the drain, down the sewer, into the river, and back into the ocean. So there's not a lot of nutrient cycling back. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of nutrient cycling. It's not comfortable talking about our poop, but trees go. Anyways, I can show this one picture of one of our fields. This is one of our permanent beds. And so not all of our land looks like this, but traditionally when you think about vegetable farming, there's rows of crops and then rows of dirt. So one thing we always do, rather than have dirt between the rows, this is a white clover we plant between the rows. And
nice.
So when things are growing, I don't have big dirty fields or a lot of dirt between the rows. We try to keep those plants growing between the rows. Just to give, it's a lot of work. Crew has to, work the hay onto around the plants we transplanted. But again, where the dirt was, that's where we grew last year, and we didn't go in there with cultivators or anything, and we left the nice perennial crops in between. And I was just seeing we had some other intercropping. So this was some of our intercropping, and Rod and I were talking about that, about planting different crops together. Kind of a little tough to tell, but the purple plants are red cabbage. And then this is corn we're growing in next to it. So not all plants can be intercropped. I know the corn is going to grow way taller than the cabbage, and the cabbage can develop underneath the corn. But you wouldn't be able to grow, carrots beside cabbage, because right now those cabbage, they look really far apart, but they're going to close in and get right close to each other. And we didn't know if we were going to be able to open our sunflower maize in U-pick this year. So this is cabbage. And some of the sunflowers we were going to plant in the U-pick, we've planted down in our fields, just help, drawing in different insects into the gardens, kind of create some diversity into our gardens. So yeah, this system isn't a growing the soil system. We use a plastic bed to conserve moisture and control weeds. But again, I'd like to move away from this system to that first picture we looked at that was just a big sea of green plants. Like that would be that's my goal. That's kind of my 5 or 10 year goal, is to move away to towards everything looking like that and away from plastic.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and it is probably a 10-year goal.
Yeah. I had dreams in the winter when we were talking, and I was listening to podcasts. It was like, I could change my whole farm over in a hurry. And then spring came around, and I'm like, no, that's not really realistic to change everything that I've been doing for 14 years and just switch it on a dime. I'd like to, but in addition to the environmental sustainability that I kind of designed my farm around, it still needs to be financially sustainable. Not that I want to get rich and be a millionaire farming or anything like that, but
so we want for you though.
Well, if it happened, maybe I wouldn't complain, but it hasn't. I can't see it happening. But no, really, my goal is just to be, environmentally sustainable. And there's the financial side. I have to be able to raise my family and pay my staff. And if I go broke and the bank takes my farm, it just goes back to being a big 640-acre conventional farm with 1 or 2 or 3 crops on it. And so, everything we have to do, we have to be cognizant of that. Any changes we make to our production methods, we have to make sure we're not going to, if there's a failure, we're not going to lose the farm, I guess, in a sense.
Right. Yeah. Appreciate that. And just the highlight that, farming there's a risk involved for sure. We're so interacting with Mother Nature, and we don't know who or how she's going to respond.
Yeah. Too much moisture. And obviously for those listening from Calgary, you're either one of the lucky ones that missed the hailstorm or one of the unlucky ones who ate it or got hit by it. And we've been on both sides of that game a couple of times. 2014, our farm got about 90% completely wiped out, and that was pretty devastating. So there's a few things we can do to mitigate against excess moisture or lack of moisture. Hail's the tough one though, because it's just the big white combine that rolls through. One thing I'm fortunate, we've had quite a bit of, my family has quite a bit of land. You know, we used to have conventional grain fields. And so the square of land is basically a square that I farm organically, that's certified organic, is a mile by a mile. So that's kind of the area I grow in with my vegetables, my seed potatoes, grain, and other crops. And so we spread our vegetables over about 3/4 of a mile, because most hailstorms come in from the west, and it's usually about a 1/4 mile wide strip of hail. So by spreading those vegetables over 3/4 of a mile, if we get hail, hopefully maybe one of the garden patches will get hit, or maybe two, but not all three. So that's kind of our hail insurance, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Trying to outsmart the Mother Nature,
Yeah.
or work with her. Let's call it that way. Yeah. Well, I'm curious if anyone here has a question for you, John. We can go there before we wrap it up.
Again, like as I mentioned, since the beginning, we've been operating a sunflower maze and the U-pick on the farm. So assuming we're allowed to open this year, it is just, you know, once we're open, it's 7 days a week. You can come in and tour the farm, and everything we do, like production-wise, like how we grow our vegetables and our U-pick, is, you know, exactly the same in our vegetable fields, like where we grow vegetables from YYC. Even if you go to the sunflower maze this summer, the sunflowers are right beside like one of our main patches of broccoli and cauliflower, and right next to our hop yard as well. So you know, coming out to the farm, you just get to see the fresh air, you see the view, and see everything that we do on the farm. One is they're just awesome people, right? And like Rod, and early on, like I worked a lot with you know, Dennis Scanlon too, who's still a member of YYC. So I first met, you know, the original group of YYC growers when I was selling vegetables at Hillhurst Sunnyside Farmers Market, and just talking to these guys got me, it kind of almost re-energized at that time about growing vegetables. Where I am here, an hour north of Calgary, I don't have a lot of other vegetable farmers in the neighborhood that are the same age that are organic. Like, that's a pretty small sliver of the farming population. So just being surrounded, meeting other people like that, just kind of empowered me. And when I had a chance to be a part of the organization, it just it seemed right, and I'm glad I had the opportunity. And then again, now, as for the last, you know, 5 or 6 years that we've been working together, and I've been growing my family, like it's allowed me to step back from the marketing, focus on the production and my family, and it's a really good fit within our life, my family's life. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, John. So do you have permission to do tours this summer yet, or not?
I've just started to talk with AHS to see what you know, what kind of plans we have to put in place to handle visitors to the farm. I know that a lot of farm tourism operations are having to go to a ticketed system, so you kind of like the Drumheller Museum, and I assume the zoo is going to be just to manage attendance, so we don't have too many people at the farm at one time.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we're just starting to develop that plan. Originally, it sounded like we weren't going to be able to open, so we kind of delayed our plantings. The earliest this year we possibly could open will be August 15th, and then usually we remain open until whenever the frost comes and finishes off our sunflowers. But somewhere between the second and third week of September is typically the end of our season. Pretty short season, yeah. Short. Well,
so probably a prime crop for the Instagram models that like sunflowers in their backdrop.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, yeah. There's not a lot of those, but yeah, we'll have lots of space for the families who don't want to get be photobombing Instagrammers.
It's pretty stunning to see a massive crop of sunflowers all in one spot.
Well, and I think one of the attractions around Calgary, the reason why, you know, it's so popular for Calgarians is this isn't a sunflower growing region. You want to go to southern Alberta or southern Saskatchewan, that's where the majority of sunflowers are, because they have the climate for it. When we grow sunflowers here, well, we often get asked what do we do with them at the end, and they're just there for bird feed. Like they'll never mature enough and dry down enough that I can harvest them and then sell them or use them for a marketable product. So they are just really there for, you know, the beauty, the diversity, bringing in birds and bees to the farm, and just the beauty. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap this up with one final question, and that is, what is the most satisfying thing for you about farming?
You know, it's what drew me away from being a grain and cattle farmer and wanting to grow vegetables, and it's just that that interaction with the people who eat my food. You know, so whether it's people who come out to the farm and enjoy the mazes and the U-pick, and I get to see the smiles on kids' faces when they pull a potato plant from the ground the first time and realize potatoes are growing down in the ground, or when I can, you know, go up to a market or a CSA drop and talk to customers about, you know, the best ways to enjoy the food to its fullest. That's what kind of got me into vegetable farming and direct marketing, and I still love it. I still love that interaction with people.
And we love you interacting with those people too. So I know you offered to come to Calgary to one of our markets, and so we're probably going to hold you to that at some point, so people can see you here in the flesh. But thank you so much for your time. I know your crew is busy working today, and you probably got to get back to them. But yeah, good to see you.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Well, thanks for everyone today. Enjoy Calgary, and let's hope for a beautiful summer.